everyone, and welcome to our professional development series. I believe this is the first one of the summer, which is very exciting. Today we have Thaddeus Lee with us, who is not only the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Comcast, but also the Vice President of our board here at Attollo Prep. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Just to kick us off, I would love to know, where are you from, and what were some of your interests growing up?
I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana, born and raised. I'm a 504 boy, you heard me? But I've lived everywhere. I've lived all over. New Orleans is home. That's where my parents live today. That's where my 3 sisters live. And then I have brothers across the country. Some of my interests growing up, they varied. Sports were definitely a big part of my family. Music is a big part of my family. Yeah, I think that I really enjoyed, at a very young age, I got into multi-level marketing. I was 17 years old when it was introduced to it. Like, when you recruit people, you sell a product, and I got into that at a young age, and I was hooked. I was hooked on like talking to people and selling an idea, and that kind of like was in my DNA. I didn't know it was in my DNA, but it unlocked something once I was exposed to it. And so, if you don't know about MLMs, trust me, live long enough, you'll find out.
How were you first introduced to that at 17?
My dad's friend came over and he was doing a presentation in the living room. And my dad's name is Thaddeus, is what he was like. And he was from our church. He was like, "Brother Thaddeus, I'm telling you, this is gonna hit. I'm telling you, you're gonna wanna be a part of it. You're gonna wanna be a part of it." And he was showing the numbers and he was saying, and then he pulled out check stubs. And he started showing check stubs, and he started showing like 6-figure check stubs, and I was like, I'm in, like I want it, like, let's go. So yeah, that's how I got into it.
That would get me too.
I was just eavesdropping on the conversation with grown folks talking.
Well, to be fair, you heard your name, so.
I did hear my name. That's a good point. I did hear my name, you're right.
So grew up in New Orleans, but that's not where you studied in college. So where did you study? And what did you study, and how did that lead you to where you are today?
That's a good question too, because I was on, unlike you all, I feel like you all inspire me so much, all of these students and yourself and the audience, because you're locked in, you're focused, you know where you're going. I was on the verge of being a perennial lifetime college student. I started my college career at the University of New Orleans, and I remember going into a psych class with like 600 people, and I think I probably flunked out my first semester. I don't know if I flunked out, but I know I didn't do exceptionally well. And I did that for like a year, and then I was like, I'm leaving New Orleans. I moved to Maryland. I lived in Montgomery County, so then I got my associate's degree from Montgomery Community College. And I was like, I thought I was going to study history, go to the University of Maryland, and then I ended up studying abroad in Costa Rica. And when I came back, I was like, I want to study theology. So I left Maryland and I moved to California to study theology. And I did that. And while I was there studying theology, I got a job working for Comcast, the company that I'm with today, 21 years ago. So it's been a long time. But yeah, that's what I did. And later in life, I went to grad school, and that's a different story. But yeah, that's what I studied.
So we started working at Comcast in college.
In college, yes. I was actually working at Starbucks, just kind of paying my way through school. I was working at Starbucks in Lincoln Center in Stockton, California. And my boss, Sunny, she was like, "My boyfriend can get you a job." That's what she said, I remember. And they're married to this day, I remember that. And she said, his name's Antonio. And so so that's how she was, I'm tall, she was really short. She's like, his name's Antonio. So I remember that. I was a barista too, and I was like, okay, I'd love to meet him. And I met Antonio, and he was just like, if you don't mind hard work and you're a hustler, I was like, that's it, that's all I know. And so I got a job, and they gave me a truck, and they taught me how to install cable. So next thing you know, I'm in school, I'm crawling under houses, hanging off telephone poles, doing it all, hustling.
So we started, I almost want to say at the bottom, but if you're at the top of a telephone pole, you're already at the top.
You know what? It was the bottom, because there were crawl spaces about the height under this table, and I would have to shimmy under somebody's home. So I had like crawl suits, and we would zip up the crawl suit, zip tie our pants, so spiders couldn't crawl into our suits. And so I would go in, and I would run my cable, and I would put them in all I would push them up through the house, and I would connect the cable. So yeah, I would have to crawl under homes and then crawl on telephone poles. I used to have to disconnect people's cable. People used to come outside. Like I did it in some areas. Like there've been a few times where I disconnected people's cable, knock on their door. They was like, "What's up?" I was like, "I'm the cable guy." So yeah, like I started. Yeah, it was a different time, but yeah, it was a hustle. It was a good time.
So outside of Starbucks, have you worked for any other company since you started with Comcast?
No. Since I started with Comcast, no. Before Comcast, when I was in school, I worked everywhere. When I was in Maryland, I worked at UPS. So I had an 8 o'clock business law class at Montgomery Community College. I was at UPS at 3 a.m. loading trucks in Gaithersburg, Maryland. And I had a pink, it was like a hot pink Geo Prism that I would drive to work. And I was sleepwalking. And I would literally get to campus at 7:30 after loading trucks. And it's just like a conveyor belt of boxes during the holidays, like, you know, whenever, like UPS. I did that, and I would have 4 trucks. I'd be very organized, and it would just be nonstop, and there would be just mountains of boxes because guys wouldn't be able to grab their boxes fast enough. I worked at FedEx, I worked at UPS, I worked at Kinko's. I've worked, I feel like, every job. Once I got to Comcast, I've been with Comcast pretty much the whole time, and that's been it. But yeah.
Have you ever thought about leaving Comcast? And if so, what made you think of it, and why did you decide to stay?
I've definitely thought about it, and to be candid, I still think about it, right? I mean, you know, life is about opportunities and choices. I'll never forget when I was in San Francisco, I was a sales manager, and a company called Salesforce reached out to me to like join their team. And it's like, if you know anything about Salesforce, like they're top. Big, like that's a top company. But I was a sales leader. They wanted me to be a salesperson, and I was like, I don't know if I want to like start over. I had already been with the company at that point about 9 or 10 years, and I was like, I built up equity in the company. People know me. If I go to Salesforce, it's a big company. I'll have to start over. I don't mind betting on myself, but I was like, is it worth it? Like, is the leap worth it? And I didn't really feel like it was. They were exceptional. Like, when you guys start your companies, one of the things that Salesforce said to me that stuck with me was, don't worry about pay. Just we want you to fall in love with the opportunity and our culture, right? And we will figure out the pay. And I fell in love with the opportunity and the culture, but we never could figure out the pay. And so that was, but that worked out in my favor because I ended up having, I'm very fortunate to have had success at Comcast, but it's, I've thought about that. There've been other times along the way where smaller companies have asked me to take larger roles over the years. Once you start to build up a brand within a company and you can see a future there, you have to really be careful not to trade your dollars for quarters, right? If you feel like you have something that's worth keeping, then you need to continue to build it and to trust the process. Now, if something came along and I get to trade my dollar for $5, then that's a different story. But I've learned over the years, don't chase titles and don't chase money. I've seen too many people chase titles and they come back, and I've seen people chase money, and just the money is never enough to be in a toxic place. And so I love the culture that we have at Comcast. We really do. I mean, we're not perfect. There's a lot of things I feel like we can improve on, but the people make it worthwhile, and the opportunity to connect with customers I love it. I was in a customer's home 2 days ago, and there was an elderly gentleman, and it reminded me of like why I love working with the company and being in the field.
Did you put the crawl suit back on?
I didn't, but I was in the backyard in the sun, and we were fixing the cable. I was with a tech. We were fixing the cable, and like we were walking in the backyard, and like there's clearly dogs that be in that backyard. I'm like stepping in the backyard trying to dodge stuff, but we did get him up and running. And when we walked in, he told us how much he hated us, the company. Like that's what we were greeted with. And like that gave me a rush. Like I was like, oh, we about to change your mind, Playboy. Like that's what I thought to myself. And when we left, like he was full of gratitude. He was all smiles. But when we came in, he was all gas, no brakes. He was all fire, no ice. And I love those opportunities, right? So you need to, like, as you're thinking about your careers, you should think about what type of problems wake you up. What type of problems make you like, you know what? This customer's angry, let me take care of them. I got it. I always tell people in customer service and customer experience, and people are gonna come in angry, you can't let that shake you and rattle you. You gotta like hear what's not being said underneath all of the yelling and the screaming. To a certain point. So I have a story for that too, but yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I really appreciate the question that you posed to us, which is what type of problems wake you up? And I think that connects to this concept of building your own brand. And just from what I have come to learn from you being on our board and in our conversations, and even just in this conversation today, it sounds like part of your brand is really focusing on the hustle and the grind and working through that. Seeing as this is a professional development series, I'm curious if you could give some advice on what it looks like to build your own brand and what are the components of your brand that you try to convey in your work.
Yeah, I love that question. You know, it's funny, I'm going to, with my team, we're about to go into a series on branding. One thing about building your own brand you should always know is that you're on stage even when you think you aren't.
Ooh.
Right? The music is always playing, the lights are always on, and the camera is always rolling. You need to remember that. So when you have a moment where you have a meltdown, people see it even if they say they don't. And what I mean by meltdown, I mean when you lose your composure. There are people, I was talking to one of my teammates this morning. We had a meeting this morning and I shared with this person, I said, hey, when did you know that you weren't going to be able to make this meeting? And they said it, they gave their response, and I said, listen, we got to do better with our communication. I said, because there's already whispers out there in the ether about you not showing up to meetings and you missing this obligation or that obligation. And I said, all your hard work will get nullified if you don't take care of this. And I said, a lot of people will smile and they were like, oh, you know, Emily, it was great. We just had a different candidate. That was a better fit. And what they're not telling you is, you know, Emily's cool, but she's always late. Emily's cool, but she, you know, she get too mad sometimes. Or Thaddeus is cool, but he doesn't know his numbers. He doesn't know his business. He doesn't know his products. I had a leader tell me, get rid of your buts. Know what they are and get rid of them. Thaddeus is a nice guy, but he's never on time. He doesn't hustle. Thaddeus is a nice guy, but you know, he doesn't execute. Find out what your butts are. So when you, by the way, when you want to build your brand, one recommendation, text 10 to 15 people that are close to you, say, hey, when you think about 1 or 2 things I do well, what words come to mind? 1 or 2 things I need to work on, what words come to mind? And please be honest. Please be candid. Because if you have people that's blowing smoke, that's not going to help you. But being intentional with your brand as a person who gets things done, a person who doesn't just identify problems, but helps come up with solutions, that matters. And a person who's open to feedback. I listen to, you guys familiar with Blinkist, right? It's an app and it allows you to kind of get bite-size, it's like Cliff Notes, it's like books. And there was something that was saying, it was a book about presence and executive presence and your brand, and it was just talking about how you show up, how prepared are you? And I think what I want to convey is that I'm a collaborator, but I also want to convey that I deliver results, right? I think there is no, well, I don't think, I know, there is no substitute for results. Like, you can be a nice guy, you could be a nice person, but if you don't deliver results, I don't have space for you on the team. I just don't have enough seats on the bus for nice people alone. Now, if you deliver results and you are toxic, I don't have space for you on the team either. I can't sacrifice results for toxicity. So it's the balance of both. But your brand gets to the room, to the boardroom, to the conference room, to the interview table before you do, right? Like, it's gonna show up in the room well before you arrive. And that's important for you to remember.
I'm thinking about how there are definitely components of your brand that you said show up before you do. And how do you, in the moment, try to figure those things out? Because I feel like when it comes to interviews, in theory, we're doing a really good job and we're preparing ourselves for the interview. So it's really easy to kind of fake it till you make it. Mm-hmm. So how do you see through, like, the BS? Like, how do you, yeah.
If I'm interviewing someone,
yeah.
Or how do I cut through my own BS?
Both.
That's a good question. I said to my team the other day, we have to stop taking people's word for it. Hey, you say you're a great salesperson. Okay, sell me this rock, sell me that. So you have to demonstrate what you communicate. So, you can tell me all these stories about, you being great. I'm like, well, let me see the tape. You say you run a 4.340. All right, well, there's 40 yards between this and that. Let's see you run a 4.340. And so a lot of times, I'm gonna tell you what I recently did. A lot of people say to be a great leader, you have to coach. You have to inspire people, and you have to pull the best out of people. And everybody says they're a coach until you have them coach. I was like, okay, Jordan, here's a scenario. This employee keeps showing up late. You've talked to them 3 times, and blah, 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 blah. I give them a scenario, and it's like, I'm that employee. Go. What are you gonna do? And so when I have leaders do that, a lot of them come in and they stumble and they struggle. And I think, how do you cut through all the noise is forcing people or putting people in scenarios where they have to demonstrate the skills they say they have. I think that is the litmus test. Demonstrate what you say you can do. The other thing for myself, I'll never forget this. For me, I'm an outgoing, gregarious. I never meet a stranger. I love meeting people. I love talking to people. And I can have a good time and we can hang out all day. I can kick it with y'all. Now, when you're a sales guy, you can be perceived as someone who is all sizzle and no steak. As my mother would say, all glitter and no gold. So this person is just, essentially, they have no substance. And I'll never forget this. I was a director. I was running the call centers up in Harrisburg in Lebanon. And I knew a vice president role was coming, and my old boss, Mike, was going to be hiring. And we had a talent show at an all-employee event.
Yes.
All right? And
it's going to be good.
It's just like, yo, I was like, this talent show, like, let's get it on, So you can win an iPad, you can win an iMac. So I did Bruno Mars. There was a live band. I got up, and I think I did, Uptown Funk. I did Uptown Funk, right? So, I mean, I did my thing. It was nice, right? It was nice. Like, we had a good time, right? So that's my personality. That's like my natural habitat. Like, I grew up singing in church choirs. Being on stage was no big deal. Well, guess what? Like a month later, we had ops reviews. And we were about to like present to the senior leadership team. So it's like, that's a different energy. And it's like, I know people could be looking at me and thinking like, oh, this guy is just the fun guy. Like, he's just the guy that likes to have a good time. He's gonna rally and rah-rah. And it's like, but I knew I had to go into this room and show a different version of who I am. It's like, I'm not just capable of doing one thing. And so I told myself, I'm gonna slow my pace of how I communicate. I'm gonna make sure they see the numbers. They understand the narrative of the business and my strategic focus. You see what I did there? I slowed down. I paused. I showed a completely different channel. They're used to watching MTV. I put it on Fox News or Fox Business. I put it on what's the business? Bloomberg. I put it on Bloomberg, right? I put it on a business channel, but they were used to like whatever, something fun, like Comedy Central. And I think you have to be able to flex, like as a leader. So cutting through the BS or helping yourself. Understanding your audience. I think that's really the moral of the story. Who's your audience? What's the moment? Not every conversation deserves your volume to be at a 9. Sometimes it needs to be at a 2. Your passion may need to be dialed back a little bit, right? You have to read the room, understand the audience, and all of that is brand. Because I know some people, their passion is constantly at a 10, constantly at a 10. So they're known as being passionate. I was like, well, I can't talk to Thaddeus about this because he's just gonna come in guns blazing. He's not gonna even listen. Like, it's like you have to know how to dial it back. You have to manage that. That's part of managing your brand.
It's so funny you say the phrase, you need to know your audience. Is that something my dad would say to me? But usually when I was in trouble and I was trying to talk back, he's like, know your audience.
Yeah.
But I feel like that is very applicable to every aspect of your life. Like, know who you're talking to and know what energy that they need in order to receive the message that you're trying to convey, and how you might have to switch that up to make sure that your point gets across. But on this topic of having different skills that you demonstrate, and the phrase that you said earlier, to be a great leader, you have to coach. I'm curious on if you could talk about the aspects of your life outside of your work where you continue to demonstrate these skills, and where do you see yourself being the coach and, I guess, continuing to further demonstrate your brand, not just in the workplace, to make sure that it shows a consistency?
I'll say two places that come to mind. The first is parenting. Right, like my son is here today, parenting, and I have a daughter, or just working with my nieces and nephews. Right, I always feel like I am my brother's keeper. So starting with my kids, I'll say number one, trying to figure out ways to get the best out of them and create an environment that allows them to find and to blossom, to grow and blossom. But growth doesn't just happen from growth. In fact, let me just say this: growth rarely happens from comfort, right? Like, just because you're safe doesn't mean you should be comfortable. My kids are safe, but I do not want them to be comfortable, right? So there's rigor, right, that their natural environment doesn't require of them. So when I grew up in the lower Ninth Ward in New Orleans. I had a good childhood, but like there were things that maybe my family didn't have access to that now my kids have access to. But that built a toughness in me. It's like, I gotta go get it. Like, I gotta work. If I gotta work here, work there, work everywhere, work 2, work 3 jobs, that's what I'm gonna do. Well, my kids don't have to do that. But how do they build that muscle? How do they build that resilience? One of the pillars that I love. Like, how do they build that resilience is I have to create rigor, right? I have to be tough on them. I can't allow them to just go through life believing that these things just appear. These things come from sweat, they come from blood, they come from tears. So coaching them means saying no, means saying, yeah, you don't, and it also means being honest. It's like, yo, I know you think you're good, but you ain't that good. Right? Like, it's being real. It's being transparent, it's being real. That's love. Real love doesn't let you go out into the streets thinking you're something you're not. Real love actually gives you the real, keep it a buck, as you always might say, and then you get to understand and have an awareness of how other people are perceiving you, and then now you go out with that knowledge. Now you're even more powerful because now nobody else is slapping you in the face with that reality that doesn't love you, that doesn't think of it, that doesn't care about you. So that's one way. My kids, that's how I coach. My friends' kids, right? Like, I take personal pride in like looking out for my friends' kids. So that's a big deal to me. But the other thing I would say is my friends in general, right? Like just having real conversations with my friends, or just saying, yo, this is what I see, this is what I'm thinking. And I think in real friendships, there's a proverb that says iron sharpens iron. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. Like, if you don't have a friend that's actually going to tell you the truth and just let you sort of run out there, I think that's unfortunate. I think we need that. But those are some of the ways, like, I try to practice it outside of work. And I'm grateful that I have people that can do the same for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm sensing this theme of resiliency as a part of your brand as well. And as an Attollo board member, one would assume that you're not just familiar with our pillars, but you actually know them and live them out. So I guess my next question, which you already touched on a little bit, is which are your favorite pillars and why?
Strong mind, resilience, and finishing strong. Strong mind, because I think that it's really clear that in life setbacks will happen, right? So you have to bounce back from setbacks. But I also think, you do have to, in some ways, still proof your mind, because people will really try to penetrate the bubble that you create for yourself and the vision that you have for yourself. Why people do that? Sometimes they do it because of jealousy. Sometimes they do it because of insecurity. But you have to lock in and know who you are. And I don't know, I'll never forget this. I was an enterprise sales rep before I got in leadership, and I told one of my buddies, we were cold calling customers, and we were talking about something, and we got into this conversation, and I said, you know, only God is glorious, so like I don't have to fear man. I said something like that, like I don't have to worry about what a man thinks of me because like he's just like me or she's just like me. Like I don't have to stress out about that. Like they're not above me, they're not beneath me, they're with me. And so like something in my brain said, you know, so I'm not gonna let my knees shake when I'm in the presence of another man. I have respect, right? I don't under-respect, I don't over-respect, I just keep it level. But I think that mental approach allows me to walk into rooms that maybe I shouldn't be in. Maybe I don't deserve to be in, but if I'm there, like I'm here and I'm all of me is here, right? And I'm not gonna be intimidated because I'm dealing with other men, other women that have probably some of the same struggles or challenges or mental hurdles they have to overcome. So why let myself like start shaking in my boots because I'm in the room with them? They probably have this same type of thing. So strong mind, that's one reason I like that. I just think you have to be locked in. That's a daily decision, by the way. Like that's not something I win the battle with all the time. The other one is resilience, and the other one is finishing strong. When you miss the mark, and you will miss shots that you take, right? You will miss targets. What do you do next? You know, there have been roles that I haven't gotten. I've been very fortunate to have a good career, but like, I think, you know, powering through, I think is really critical, and being tough, it matters, right? And being willing to take the lumps, to take the bruises, and knowing that, you know what, everybody may not like me along the way. I enjoy being liked. I really do. Like I enjoy it. I enjoy being liked. Like I'm not one of those people who's like, it doesn't matter if people like me or not. I actually prefer you like me. I would prefer you like me. If I had to pick, I would prefer that. You know, so, but you know what though? When I feel like there's something that is happening that shouldn't be happening, like I've had moments throughout my career where I feel like this person is not showing up in the way I need them to show up for me, right? Like either they're being a little shady, they're being a little, I don't know what the word is, but they're not, we need to have a conversation, right? So there've been moments in my career where I've had to say, hey, Bob, you know, did I do something? Is everything okay? Well, I've had to have those heart-to-hearts with people. That, to me, that's resilience a little bit. It's like pushing through. It's like, hey, I can sense that there's something going on between us, like, what's up? And I think resilience is the willingness, it's not just bouncing back from setbacks, but it's the willingness to deal with uncomfortable things. You cannot lead an organization, you cannot lead a team and not deal with uncomfortable moments. And I think as you embark upon your professional journeys, you should expect that, but you should also learn how to handle those. And like over the years, I've gotten better. I can tell you throughout the journey, I remember in San Francisco, I was yelling at one of my colleagues. Like we had gotten into a fight, and fortunately it was over the phone, because had it been face to face, some furniture might have been rearranged. I've evolved since then. But I remember earlier in my career having conflict with people, and I was like, yo, who you talking to? Like, who you talking to? And like being ready to just like, yo, like, what's up? And then to be like, hey man, can we talk? Like a lot of that has changed over the years. I recommend the latter. You guys start where I finish. Like don't go into your companies going off on people. That's not gonna work, I promise.
I appreciate you sharing your story arc of change and learning who your audience is.
It matters. Yeah, it matters.
My last question for you before I open it up to our audience is, seeing as this is a professional development series and our audience is compiled of young adults entering and are navigating their careers, how do you approach taking risks? Like, how do you overcome, you mentioned this earlier, being in the room when you may not be qualified to be in there, but you're going to be in there anyways. You're going to take the risk to be in the room, which to me is overcoming imposter syndrome when you may not feel as motivated. So yeah, how do you jump into the deep end? How do you take risks early on in your career?
I would say always bet on you. Like, bet on you. I'll never forget, I was working Black Friday, Folsom Street, Best Buy, San Francisco. We had, he won't remember this, but we were having Thanksgiving dinner. Black Friday is the day after Thanksgiving. It was 11 o'clock at night. I got in my car. I put on my Comcast shirt. I went down to Best Buy. There was a line wrapped around the building because, you know, for Black Friday, people were like charging the doors. So I'm literally working the line. What's up? I got that Comcast. What we talking about? Right? Like, I'm working the line. And I'm going person to person, working the line, selling it. I was there from 11 p.m. that night on Thanksgiving to probably 11 a.m. to noon the next day. And I probably got 30 to 40 sales in that 12-hour window. That's normally what you get in a month. I got that in that 12-hour window. And somebody was watching me. I didn't know. Remember, you're always on stage. And this is June Lee. June Lee is a serial entrepreneur. He has multiple companies right now, but he was the manager for Comcast Business at the time. And he walked over to me. He was just like, yo, I want you to come work for me at Comcast Business. I saw you at Best Buy. You was doing your thing. I want to hire you. And I was like, nah, I'm good. I'm making too much money over here. And then he pulled out his check stub and showed me a check for like 2 weeks for like 12 grand. I was like, yo, when can I start? And so when I was telling my other buddies who do well and who were at Best Buy with me, they were like, man, why would you go to Comcast Business? Like, what are you doing? Like, you know, they don't even have it figured out over there. It's a new part of the Comcast like family. Why would you do that? And they said, that's like taking a risk. And I said, first of all, I said, if they don't have it figured out, then I can figure it out for them. Second of all, when I do, I'm gonna be at the tip of the spear and the top of the mountain, right? But I was just like, it's something new. Like, right now, I'm a big fish in a pond that I know. Like, if I go to a different pond that I don't know, I'll become a big fish in a different pond. And now I could say I've been in that pond and that pond. Who else can say that? So when it comes to taking risk, I ask myself, if I don't do this and I stay the same, what if I'm going up against somebody who has that talent or that skill set or that experience? So I took the move, and then I took other moves like that. And I'll never forget, somebody said, hey, you want to sell this product? We're launching this new product. It was called PRI. I said, what's a PRI? They said, that's what we're going to figure out. And I said, sign me up. So I took that job. And 6 months later, I was walking in the building on Bayshore in San Francisco, and I was walking past somebody's office, and I didn't know who this person was. It said Director of Enterprise. I said, hey, I'm Thaddeus. It's nice to meet you. I don't know that we've met. He said, hey, I'm Ed. He says, I lead the Enterprise. Great to meet you, Ed. 2 weeks later, I was working for Enterprise. Now, I'd only been working in my other job for 6 months, but because I walked in, shook his hand, and I was willing to take the risk to sell something called PRIs, right? I was in that moment. So I was only able to get through the next door because I had walked in the door before that, that I was unknown to me. So when it comes to taking risks, I said, do it, and do it again. Because you're resilient and you'll bounce back. And then failing is really overrated. Failing is really overrated. It's really, Mike Parker, one of my forever bosses, said to me, it's never failing, it's always learning. Never failing, always learning. And so when it comes to risk, bet on you, right? Go in the deep end, because even when it doesn't turn out the way you want it to turn out, you learn something from it. And now you have something that the friends who were scared to jump, they don't have. They don't have that story. They don't have that experience. So I love taking risk. And I think the older you get and the more responsibility you have, the more calculated you have to be. The younger you are as you're starting, like you can try things, you can go here, you can go there, like do it. I say go for it. Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I always thought it was kind of the opposite, that the more experienced you are, the more ability you might have to take a risk. But it sounds like as you move up into your career, you have to be more calculated with that. When you're early on in your career and you're just starting to get yourself out, you can kind of just go for it.
The risks give you experience, right? They give you experience. And I think, even in my career now, like you talk about, have I thought about leaving the company? It's like, I'm a senior leader at a company that people will call the Titanic. I've been offered opportunities to be a senior leader, what some people may say is a yacht. And so I say to myself, why would I leave the Titanic to go get on a yacht? I mean, I don't know if the Titanic is the best example.
I think the Titanic sunk.
I should find a better analogy, okay? But I think you get the imagery that I'm trying to paint. It's like, hey, I can go do that, but am I going to outrun the current race I'm running? Like, am I going to or surpass rather what I'm currently doing? And the opportunities that I've seen really aren't that. And I think I'm on the trajectory to be, to do very well at this company. However, you know how life is. Like, life takes twists and turns, and if opportunities present themselves, like you owe it to yourself, no matter how much you love a company, to have a conversation with whoever wants to talk to you, right? Because you really don't know what's out there. And one of my friends told me this: always take the call. Never say, "Oh no, I'm happy where I'm at." No, always take the call. Always sit down. Always listen. But don't chase money. Don't chase titles. It's gotta mean more than that.
I appreciate that. All right, who's got questions for Thaddeus? Pritesh.
Yeah. So I know something you mentioned earlier was cutting out the butts, and earlier this week I know we also talked about we have more control over what we're doing than we might originally think we do. So what is your thought process when somebody says, okay, Thaddeus is this, but that? What is your process in changing that but and reframing yourself?
Great question, Pritesh. I would say, when you hear the buts, it's really important to consider the source, right? It's like, okay, Thaddeus is this. I'm sitting in a room, true story. I'm sitting in a room with a guy, and I'm a new leader to this team, and the guy tells me, you guys, Jordan's gonna laugh when he says this, he's like, you need to smile more. Remember I told you this story about this guy? It's like, I'm like, dog, all I do is smile. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I smile all the time. And I'm listening to this feedback. He's like making it sound like I'm this person that I'm not. And I'm like, okay. I say, hey, thank you for that. I said, let me share this feedback with people who've been around me to see if they've observed the similar behavior, right? So I do think about, who is this person? Because there are people in the stands looking at your life, shouting at you that they don't deserve to have a voice in who you are and what you become. But the people that are on the field with you, they see you up close, right? They see your blind spots. And I think when it comes to that, like, hey, that is, so one of the things that I could tell you, one of my butts right now, one of the things I'm really trying to get better at is how well I articulate the financial side of the business. Right? So Thaddeus is a great guy. He's a great leader. He can coach people. He can develop people. They execute. They drive change. But I just want to see him have a little bit more command, maybe on the P&L, a little bit more command on the numbers. And so for me, how am I addressing that? Number one, I say thank you for the feedback. Number two, I always say the quickest way to get smart is to be dumb. And so I bring people in who I feel like are experts in that space. And I say, teach me this, but teach it like you're teaching it to my middle schooler. And I humble myself. And so I think by humbling myself, I learn, and I learn quicker. And so I can pick it up. Like most things in life, if you discipline yourself, you can pick it up. None of this stuff is like, I don't know what a great analogy is. I always say brain surgery, but with enough time, you can pick up brain surgery. But I feel like when you hear about your butts, right? When you hear about your butts, if it's coming from a trusted source, or if it's, and trusted sources can be people who don't like you. That's important to remember, right? Like, you probably want to hear from them too. You don't just let your fan club give you feedback. It's got to be some of your naysayers, because they may say, like, this guy's lateral movement is whack. Maybe they're right? And so And then humble yourself. Humble yourself and say, hey, teach me. Go to the people who know. And I spend more time with my financial partners than anybody else. Like I say, walk me through this again. Now I'm going to say it back to you, but I want you to pepper me with questions. I want you to ask me something that I wasn't expecting and let me know how I do. Rinse and repeat. At 1 o'clock today, I'm presenting to my boss's boss, and I have to tell the story of our subscribers, our finances, and I'm asking people that are on that call, they know they're judging me. They know I've asked them to judge me before I even go in. And so that's one of the ways I'm getting rid of my butts. And my friend, she told me, she said, you know, Thaddeus, a year ago, like I just remember like you were struggling a little bit with this piece. It's like you just sound smoother. You sound more confident. You sound more poised when you're talking about this side of the business. And that's important. So that's one way I would approach getting rid of your butts.
Valeria.
You got it.
So you've mentioned multiple times always being on stage, and I'm curious your take on making that not feel so exhausting, I guess, thinking like, oh my gosh, someone's always watching me act to like put on a show, I guess, if you're on stage. So how do you keep it real, essentially, in professional settings, and when you're singing Bruno Mars, all of that?
Yeah, great question. I think it's, just know this, leadership can be lonely, right? Like I think that's important to recognize. Leadership can be lonely. People, when you are a leader, they are looking at you, like they are paying attention to you, and that is a burden. That is a burden, so that is exhausting. So I have a cave, right? I have a cave that I can go into. I have brothers that I can talk to, that I can let my hair down, and I can,
Sorry.
Right? Like I have a cave and I have people that I can exhale with, right? But I will never exhale like with people that report to me. Colin Powell has a quote. He says, you know, great leaders are followed by their troops, even if only out of curiosity, because what ends up happening is, he's like, when they're hungry, nobody knows they're hungry. When they're tired, nobody knows they're tired. When they're scared, no one knows they're scared, because they have the responsibility of getting these men over to that target, and they have to get them there alive. And so they have to lead with courage. There's that. There's the balance of that with being authentic, right? And with showing up as your true self. I think we have to really understand, you know, this comes back to reading the room, right? I think, and I'm open to other perspectives on this as well. But, you know, I don't really get exhausted by being on stage, right? Because I think I have people that I can safely let my hair down with. And then there are things that are just inappropriate for me to talk about with people on a team. So like if I disagree with the change that's happening in the organization, my boss will hear about it. My peers may hear about it because we're the team that's working out. But once that huddle's over and I go out to the masses, like that's a different stage, meaning I have to project confidence, I have to inspire trust. When I'm in the room with my boss and my peers, I'm on stage there too, but it's a more open and maybe a more vulnerable space that I can be in. But even then, I've made comments that I feel like I was kind of letting my hair down there, and I felt like I was maybe misunderstood. And I thought I was being genuine. I thought I was being authentic. And someone came to me later and they talked to me about it. I personally disagreed with them, but I understood where they were coming from. And someone told me later, it says, not everybody is ready for all of your authenticity. So if people aren't ready for all of that, why expose yourself to unnecessary judgment? Because what will end up happening is people will start drawing conclusions about who you are, but they're the ones that aren't being courageous. It's a complex thing. I feel like my answer is clear as mud. I apologize for that. But I think, though, I'm not suggesting that you be fake. Like, that's the one thing I think is important. I just recently did a 360 assessment. The thing that came through loud and clear for me is authenticity, right? That came through really loud and clear. But the thing that I need to work on is resonance and restraint. Those are two words that they said according to the feedback. So what is resonance? How am I resonating on you? I could say something right now that I have no malice in my heart, no ill will, but I have to be thoughtful of my audience, and I have to make sure that how does it resonate with you? Because we don't really have the time to get to know each other, right? So I could keep it real and just say it, but I could be thoughtful and have emotional intelligence and say, that could potentially be misinterpreted. So do I really want to say that? Is that really the best way to win this audience over? And so when you talk about being on stage, that's what I'm talking about. Like, I have to demonstrate restraint, emotional intelligence in those moments. I said something in front of a crowded room that I thought was funny.
Oh no.
That was a joke. And my boss was like, yo, man, what are you doing? He's like, you can't be saying that. And I said, oh man, I got caught up in the moment. I was having fun. And he was just like, people can misinterpret that. And I was just joking. So, but, if it was just me and my friends, it probably would have been no big deal. So I think that's how I think about that. Like, I can be authentic, but I also have to show restraint. And that's just being responsible, right? That's being responsible. And that's one of the pillars, accountability, right? Knowing that you influence or your actions impact others.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. I got some good nuggets out of
Good.
it.
Okay, all right, good.
We have
All
time
right.
for one more. Yeah, Karen.
You spoke about a couple roles that you had before your current role.
Yep.
What do you think is the key difference between you and people who maybe are okay with complacency in those roles and okay with not making it to the top? What do you think the difference is?
I want to make sure I understand your question. Like, you're saying, what do I think the difference is between people who are content with where they are as opposed to being ambitious and pursuing more?
Yes, like you had talked about, maybe you were the risk taker amongst your friends, and so that would be one. But like, what do you think is the main reason you got to where you are?
That's a good question, Karen, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. I think a big piece of it is fear is overrated, just like failure, right? I think people are afraid of what they don't know. When people don't understand something, they tend to judge it, they tend to run from it, they tend to label it. I've learned that curiosity is your best friend. It's like, yo, what's up with that? What you doing? Where you get that from? Like, tell me about that. Right? I've learned to like walk up to people I don't know. I've learned to ask questions, and I think it's served me. Comfort is like a disease. You know what I mean? Like, comfort, like, is just like, it can be something that paralyzes people, but it also, contentment can be a blessing, right? So you have to balance the two, right? Ambition is part of my DNA. It's part of who I am. I'm always looking for more, but I also have to balance that with contentment and not stepping over dollars to pick up nickels, like knowing that I'm in a good thing and embracing that and being content in that. I think a lot of people are afraid of what they don't understand. Some people want things to be fully baked before they take a slice of the pie. Me, I'm willing to like taste sample along the way to see like, is it, maybe I don't want more of this, but like I'm willing to do that. And that's my personality. But I think one of the biggest differences is some of it is fear, right? And some of it is people don't want to start over. I bounced around and I was willing to be dumb for a period of time to learn something new. Like, I was willing to start over throughout and a lot of people say I've zigzagged. I've been like, kind of like on the monkey bars or a lattice, right? Not a ladder. A lot of people get into one spot and they just want to go up the ladder. The more you do that, you can be an inch wide but a mile deep, right? But it's just like, I want it to be a mile wide. I can't be a mile deep if I'm a mile wide, right? But there are pockets and spaces where I'm a little more substantive than others. So I think one of the biggest differences is, even when you're afraid, do it anyway, right? We relocated from San Francisco to Lancaster. Right. We relocated from San Francisco to Lancaster. And when I was interviewing, I was staying at the Nook Hotel.
Yeah.
And they were fertilizing the fields.
Yep.
And I didn't know what was going on. I called, I was like, yo, these people either they crazy or like, I don't know what they doing. Like nobody's flinching. I'm smelling this. And like everybody walking around. Y'all don't smell what I'm smelling? I'm like on the phone like, something's wrong over here. Like, I don't know what's up.
Yeah, you're still here.
9 years later, I know. When I smell the fertilizer, I was like, it's springtime. I'm about to get that fresh corn. Like, let's go, right? Like it's like now I know, but it's like it was new to me. It was unknown to me, right? But it's just like I don't know. That's it. Like I love the adventure of learning new things, and I think some people are afraid of that. And I think the other thing is, let me just tell you this: I don't care if I fail. I don't even care. Say what you want. I don't care if I mess up. Right? Like the people who spend time like, oh, he tried that and it didn't work. Right? I'm on to the next thing. And they still sitting over there talking about what I just failed at, but I'm doing something different now. So a lot of people are so afraid, like, I don't want to be perceived. And it's just like, hey, think what you want. Like, but I'm moving, let's go. Like, think what you want. I think once you get that strong mind, deuces. Like, you on this train, because we moving. Like, you want to ride or you want to wave? Because we out. Once I had that in my mind, it's just like, pack them up. I'm moving to a town called Lancaster. I don't know what's up, like, let's go. And, I never forget when I left New Orleans. I had people walking up to me like, you sure you want to leave? Yeah, I'm sure. Like, where you going? I'm going to Maryland. What you doing? I don't know yet. I'm going to figure it out, though. Right? Because I'm a hustler, baby. Right? Like, you got to have that in you, right? You got to know. Like, and that's why I say bet on you. Don't be afraid. And so what? So what if you fall? So what if you fail? So what? Like, so what? It's all right. Right? You're going to go to school. You're doing what you do. And everything is not going to always work out the way you intended. Get up, keep moving, right? And keep climbing, right? And you will be stronger when you look back over your shoulder. You're going to look in the mirror and you'll be like, whoa, I'm different. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you. I just want to say that sometimes I feel like in different institutions that I've been a part of, board members can be perceived as untouchable and not easily accessible. And I just really wanted to thank you for not only being here today, but for showing that part of board service and serving on Attollo's board specifically is giving back to the community and being not just an example and always on stage in that regard, but really being accessible to our students, to our alumni, to our employees, and I think you do an excellent job of that outside of this specific moment as well. So I really appreciate you being here today and for your continued service to this organization.
It is my absolute privilege. From day one, I was 10 toes down. Like, I love it. Like, I love everything about it. I love Jordan. We met by me walking up to him, tapping him on the shoulder and be like, yo, I heard that we supposed to meet. What's up? What's up? Like, I was like, let's exchange numbers. That was like 8 years ago, and here I am. And it's a privilege. And the thing, let me just make sure you know this about being on stage. The lights have been shining, the music has been playing, and I have utterly failed, right? So don't feel the pressure of perfection, right? Even though I know I'm on stage, I know I'm gonna mess up. I know I'm gonna go off on somebody. I know I might cuss somebody out that I shouldn't be cussing out. Like, I know I'm gonna make mistakes, but it's like, it's bouncing back. It's about like, okay, I could have handled that differently. People saw, make your apologies, move on. But I love doing this. I love what you all are about, everything about, like, just seeing the passion, and I love the lives that I get to connect with and be a part of. So thank you, it's my privilege.